Alrighty, guys. So we're here for another installment with your boy Matt Runk over here. The geologist from last time. There is a bit of a past or kind of lingering life here, and common interest he has with brewing, and had some training beforehand on that, and is very passionate about it. I'm pretty excited to talk about that here, and get into the details of that. So, just for as a refresher, remind me and the in the audience here, kind of what got you into brewing and what inspired you to do it and what that path looked like getting into it.
Yeah, man, great to be back. I do love talking about beer. It's one of my core passions. But one of the things that got me into brewing, I went to a couple festivals to see music concerts for like bluegrass bands. Those kind of camp out, stay the weekend, listen to music every day ones. And they had a tent set up where it was a whole bunch of local microbreweries and meaderies,
Yeah.
that they were just showcasing all their different stuff, and you could go in and buy tickets, get little taster glasses, and go around to everybody. And the one I really liked was the mead, right? The honey wine. And I was like, this is awesome. This is some like Viking drink, right?
Yeah.
And so I sort of dug into that information a little bit, tried to learn about how to make it, what the ingredients are, what the process is. And I eventually found my way back to community college to try and get a degree, because I was bouncing around doing factory work and just not really getting where I wanted to be in life, and wasn't making the money that I was hoping to live off of. And I was like, I gotta go back to school, gotta make this
The
work.
the classic 24 or 25-year-old man problem.
Exactly. It's like, this
Yeah.
isn't working. I have enough to live off of, but this isn't my future, right? So I
Right.
started looking one day, and I was doing classes for, I think it was like business or chemistry, right? Just some general gen ed stuff. And I was looking through the catalog of different degrees that the community college offered. And the bottom was one that said Sustainable Brewing. And I was like, is it beer making classes? Like, I can
Uh-huh.
make, hold on a minute. I guess people do have to make beer. I didn't know there's college classes for this.
Yeah.
And so I dug into it, and I absolutely fell in love with the science, right? It's got a little bit of microbiology. It's got a lot of water chemistry. It's got a lot of almost like herbology, right? With the way that the ingredients are grown, and how each region, whether your barley or your wheat comes from a different part of the country, or your hops are grown in Europe or over here in like Washington or California, they all
Yeah.
taste different, right?
Yeah.
And so I see
Based on
brewing as
the
almost,
constituents of the soil and even the
yeah,
water
yeah,
in there, similar to what we were talking about last episode, right?
yeah. They call it terroir. It's the
Terroir.
taste, yeah, the taste, the imprints on the product based on where it's grown. And I absolutely fell in love with it. I see brewing as almost like a wall of knobs and switches, and you turn any little one and it changes the end product. So I started going to school for it. I took all the classes. I needed an internship to graduate, so I found a little Italian restaurant that my little brother Patrick was working at, and they had a beer license, and their brewer had left, and they had one of the cooks sort of like carrying the torch, halfway brewing stuff, but he didn't really know anything. He's like, this
Right.
is what the other guy showed me. I just make it the way it's always been, and I don't know anything about how to make it better.
This was at Bravo, right?
Yeah, this is at Bravo, which is sadly a restaurant that is no longer in business after COVID. They shut
Yeah.
the doors.
One
So
of many victims.
it's a shame, but a lot of good people worked there, and I think most of them got jobs other places. I've tried to keep tabs on the staff
Yeah.
that I really liked.
Usually they're pretty
But
well
yeah,
networked if they've been in the restaurant industry
yeah.
for a while in an area, and someone will help them get something on.
Exactly. And they had some, it was a well-known restaurant, and the food quality was really good. It was just,
Yeah.
and they didn't always get the traffic they needed to keep the numbers up, right?
Right.
But so I brewed there for about a year and a half, internship for 4 months, and then they hired me on afterwards. I only brewed like a couple days a week, but I was sort of the head brewer there because there was nobody else that really knew anything. So I sort of got free reign of recipes, free reign of editing stuff, free reign of trying to change the process. And I was able to use a lot of my knowledge about, water chemistry and how to use the quality control parameters on beer to look for things like, specific gravity,
Yeah.
pH, all that kind of stuff to like really dial in these brews. And I mean, I came up with a few rye beer recipes that were my own inventions, where I had some of the cooks coming up and being like, man, who made, like, Matt, what is this? Like,
Yeah.
I hate beer. Like, I'm a spirits guy. I drink liquor, but like I could have a whole keg of this to myself and I wouldn't stop. Like,
Yeah.
you got to tell me what this is. All right. So I
a
was
good
pretty
start.
proud of that.
Yeah.
And I graduated from the community college with my degree, and I think I only looked for maybe a month or two after, because I think I graduated in December, and by early March of 2020, I had landed a job in Lansing at a brewery called the Ellison Brewery, working as a cellarman there, doing the finished product, and worked there for a single day, and then they shut down the state for COVID. Which was a wild ride to have moved cities, got a new lease, started a new job, and I'm like walking in.
You don't know anybody, and you're in California with no job.
Well, this was in Lansing, actually.
Oh, okay.
At Ellison.
Getting ahead of ourselves, yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. The story comes around.
Yeah.
But so I worked out there. We went through the shutdowns. We got back part-time, and I love the guys that worked there. They let me on the brew house right away. They taught me tons of stuff. They were super great people, but we were only working like 28 hours a week after the shutdown. And I was like, man, I can't pay my bills like this, right? So I started looking online and bouncing all over the country, and I found a brewery called Track 7 Brewery out in Sacramento in California.
Right.
And I put in an application, and they brought me up on a Zoom call and got the head brewer and the lead brewer. It was the guy who oversees everything and the guy that actually ran the brew house the most. Did a big interview where they grilled me about, what's the chemistry of the process? What's the full brewing from like seed grow to actual production? Like, what are some of the things to watch out for to know it's not finished? Like, if this problem comes up, how do you fix it? If you have
like,
too high gravity. Yeah. I was like, okay, yeah. And I went boom, 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 and just walked through the whole process with them, right? From beginning to end. And I remember getting off the call. They said, we'll keep in touch. And it was a Zoom call. Back then everybody didn't know the buttons real well. So before they hit end call, I heard the lead brewer turn to the head one and goes, that dude knows his stuff really well. We got to get him. And so they offered me the job. They paid me to relocate. And I moved out there and did a year of brewing in California, which was an amazing time in my life. It's a little strange because COVID was still going on. We were opening up, shutting down. But out there, brewing was considered a food service, and it was an essential work. So we got to keep making beer even through the shutdowns, which was great for work and experience. But I learned a lot out of there. And I think the cellarman I trained under left after 2 months, and I got thrown the reins to the whole backside of the process. Basically less than 4 to 6 months outside of graduating with little to no experience. And I went, all right, I haven't brewed on something that's 120 barrels, right? A barrel is like 32 gallons. So this is, 300-400 gallon fermenter. And they're just like, here you go, man. Don't mess up our beer.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of what we were talking about last time, right? Where if you end up in a place that gives you a lot of opportunity, right? You know, you can get a lot of hands-on experience, and that'll grow you real fast. So
yeah, absolutely. And so I sort of grew into the role as best I could, really leaned into it, and tried to do the best I can, helped improve their beers a little bit, carried the quality control lab while one of the head brewer had a kid with his wife, and he went on paternity leave for a couple months. And so while he was gone, it was me and the owner. And the owner was like, I know some, man, but do you know what you're doing with this? And I was like, I got you. I'm going to run with it. I've done a lot of this testing in my classes. So if you trust me to do it right, I'm going to run with this. And so it was a nice place to work. I learned a lot. They had a main production facility and then sort of like a experimental smaller brewery where they had like 2 locations. One was in a different part of the city. And they would brew like fruit style, almost seltzer beers. They would make a really light, like wheat ale with no real flavor profile, and they would add a fruit puree to it. Okay. And that way, and then they would take that puree and they would make slushies out of it. They would put it in a slushy machine and make frozen beer. Like margaritas almost without the spirits, and they sold like
have your girlfriend drink this. Like.
Yeah. Come down to the microbrewery. We'll get you this nice fruity drink. And it's 95 degrees outside, 0% humidity. Everybody's sweating, and it was a great thing to have out there. So it was a lot of fun. I learned a ton of stuff, and then I got passed over for some raises because of the shutdowns and the company struggling. I was like, well, the money is why I work, unfortunately, for as much as I love beer. So
Yeah.
I ended up looking back into school, and that's what brought me to my geology side that I talked about last time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of this winding road from factory
Yeah.
work to beer making to geology. And you
Yeah.
wouldn't think a lot of them are connected, but
Well,
there's silver threads through all of it, I guess.
yeah, and I can already see a connection here. The big connection is the quality of the water, right?
Right.
Because like
Yeah.
people don't think about the fact that we were talking about this, a few years back. The most important thing about the quality of coffee or tea or beer isn't actually the quality of the yeast or the hops or the beans. It's the quality of the water, because the
Yep.
water is the most abundant ingredient inside of that whole mixture. So, in a way, you can kind of vet the quality of the water for your beer now too. So
Yeah. That
that's
was actually,
also-
I wrote a whole paper on that for one of my geology courses. I did a comparison of the Kentucky limestone and how that is a foundational factor in bourbon creation, and I
Yeah.
compared it to the peat-rich soil in Scotland. That
Yeah.
is the backbone of your scotches, right? The
Okay.
difference between a nice, clean bourbon taste and the smoky smoky peaty scotch taste
Right.
is rooted in the rocks of the region. And it was a fun way to sort of bring the two worlds together in a way that even all my classmates and professors were like, you said you were going to do this, and I let you do it, but I didn't
wasn't
expect you to actually.
expecting
Yeah, I didn't expect you to be able to pull this off and actually merge alcohol
Yeah.
making with rocks. Like, it didn't seem that
it
intuitive.
didn't seem plausible back then,
Right?
But yeah,
But hey,
it's definitely completely related, as
It's a lot
as
of
you
fun.
know, and as now they know. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine that. I guess what's like a big concept that stuck out to you as you were digging into the brewing process? I mean, I went to some distilleries recently in Kentucky
nice.
and tried to go on some of the most historic ones. Like went to Stetzel Weller. There's
Okay,
a
yeah.
huge. That's like the one. You go like any responsible, well-read adult. You go on Reddit.com and you type in what are the ones I need to see. And all the keyboard warrior aficionados have all their opinions, and you sort out to the top. And everyone was saying, you have to go to Stitzelweller and probably first because that's the historical background for everything else. And got this really nice inside tour. Usually those $65 tours, that the high end progressive tours with the deep history dive and the reserve barrels and all this kind of stuff. You try like a $350 scotch on that tour. Yeah, that was really cool. It's like 2 hours. There's supposed to be like 15 to 20 people. There were only like 3 people there.
Oh, wow. So you
So
guys
we
got the
just
full
got
attention
to-
of the tour guide.
Yeah, for like 2 hours. It was awesome.
Wow.
So he's like, I don't know where everybody went, but I guess we're doing this. I'm like, this is going to be sick. So,
Yeah.
so that was a really nice kind of intimate tour of the entire history of everything. And one cool thing that I learned there was that Maker's Mark, there's a bit of an analog here between Maker's Mark and Stitzel Weller, and ironically enough, Fox bassoons and Heckle bassoons. You might say, what the hell's going on here? Basically, what's happening is Fox ended up. Let's start with Maker. Let's start with Fox. Fox ended up is a bassoon company, and they're the bassoon company that I have. I have a 601 professional bassoon from 2014. Really, really good bassoon. And I think sometime in like the 40s, 50s, or 60s, they were really struggling with their schematics and blueprints and things like that. And they got in touch with Heckle. This is a little known fact from a teacher that I studied with in Connecticut. And they were like, we just need something that's going to work well to get the ground running because we're just not where you guys are. And they got a hold of a Heckle pre-war, like pre-World War II Heckle schematic, which is a pretty coveted bassoon. You can't get anymore unless you pay a ridiculous, fee for a used one for the history of it these days.
Right.
And they got a hold of one of those schematics and kind of rebased their entire company off of that schematic and took and ran off from there. And now, Fox is blown up to be the highest selling bassoon company in the world. So,
wow.
And it's not because, depending on who you talk to, Foxes are better than Heckles or Heckles are better than Foxes.
Right.
Everyone's going to agree that, probably, Heckle is on paper better than Fox just because of all the history. They're like the supreme brand. from Europe, I believe Germany, if I remember correctly. But
Sounds right.
thing is, Heckle, you have like a 3 or 4 year wait list for one, or 2 or 3 or 4 year wait list for one. You don't get to choose which serial number you get. You just roll with what you got.
Okay.
So, and the prep making process is less streamlined than Fox, which is by far like the most kind of mass produced or like most consistent out of all of them. Have a lot of infrastructure there. And so basically what I'm trying to say is Maker's Mark and Stitzel Weller did the same exact thing, where Maker's Mark went to Stitzel Weller and said, we're just not hecking it. We need some help. And they got a hold of a recipe from Stitzel Weller, a corn-based recipe, and based their whole brand off of that. And here we are. Maker's Mark is one of the highest selling bourbons in the world today. So there's all sorts of really cool inside stories like that, and also about the why the buildings are black. It's kind of like the tattle fungus, basically. I think it was called. Where
stuff.
yeah, where like the releasing compounds from the yeast and the alcohol will eventually, over the course of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, turn the walls of the distillery from their normal industrial color to they'll be like this kind of like black mold that grows on the walls.
Yeah, it's like a matte black sort of like coating on everything.
Yeah, so it's like the tattle fungus back in the Prohibition days, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like they're making illegal shit here.
Yeah, there's no hiding it. It's all right out there in the open.
Yeah, so, but kind of another fun little thing there, and then I'll get off my kind of soapbox here, is you probably know this, that like back in the Prohibition days, I took some pretty cool pictures of this. There was, this may remind you of something else in our modern times. I think times don't really change at all. No. Historical patterns just keep repeating themselves, which is why history is so interesting. But there was a medical license that you could have for bourbon.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it was like you could be prescribed a pint of liquor every 10 or 14 days or something like that for your family, for medicinal purposes.
Medicinal liquor, I like that.
Yeah, so I immediately say, oh, it's like a green card, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
So people found a way around this, and then I think there was like a group of 9 distilleries that were permitted legally to release their bourbon for those medicinal purposes. Stitzel Weller was on that list. I forget what the term is for like the registration number for a distillery.
Right.
But
I forget off the top of my head too.
Give you an idea, I went to Old Forester and I went to Stitzel Weller. I think they're up to like 20,000 on there. It's literally just the order in which they were given the license.
Okay.
Old Forester is like 180 something or 116.
Oh, wow.
And Stitzel Weller is like 16.
Wow, it's like on the first batch.
Yeah, so
cool.
they're the OGs. So, but yeah. I guess kind of I want to. I don't remember
to bring it back together.
I don't remember where we're going to bring it back together.
I think you were asking if I had like sort of like historical like stories or tidbits or things that I noticed from my education in brewing that like stood out as like cool tidbits of information or fun facts, kind of thing.
Like fundamental pieces of information that kind of inform everything downstream, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. The biggest one that I thought was really cool is that most styles that you hear about, like a Weissen beer from Germany, or like there's like the Burton on Trent style beers. Like most of those regional, or even like the ones from like the Middle East and stuff. There's a few from there as well, where they're like. They're highlighted historical beers that are set up as styles that are sort of like the cornerstone of a certain beer style. And they're all based upon the water chemistry, like we were talking about, of the region. Because they were just getting water from the river. And they couldn't mess with it. They didn't know how to, they couldn't like reverse osmosis the water out and then add brewing salts back in to like mess with the chemistry themselves, right? They just had to go with whatever they had. So I thought it was really cool that a lot of these styles and the grain choices and whether or not there were hops in them and the whole formula that came behind making the beer recipe was grounded in what the natural water was of the region. And I thought it was a really cool thing.
Yeah.
And that ends up giving birth to a lot of family recipes that are like highly guarded, like you were saying. Like they didn't want to give out the recipes, or they had to go to another distiller or brewer and say, "Hey, we're not making this to where we want it to be. Can you help us, with an idea or an extra piece of information to get us over this hump to make our stuff taste better?"
Yeah.
And I really think that sort of like old time family secret, like guarded recipe style, like history behind beer is such a rich, cool history, because it shows that these were like, town prides or family secrets, or like, if you couldn't just go out and Google it and find out, well, what's in this beer? Like what's Bell's putting in their Oberon? Let me look at the back of their Bell's
Brave
Oberon
browser.
kit. Yeah.
Use the Leo AI. What's in a beer? What's the recipe? Go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You had to go there.
Yeah.
You had to talk to them. You had to get friends with the family. You had to sort of do your thing that way. And if you wanted to have any hope whatsoever of getting a piece of that information. So I think that's a really cool part of it. Another cool one that I know is that I think it's one of the distilling TV shows that are out there. I forget which one. So my webcam's freaking out. Hold on.
Yeah. Autofocus is back now. There you go.
Hey, there it is.
Yeah.
But it was like one of the like Southern distillers TV shows where they go out and they put their stills out in the woods and make stuff, and they make their moonshine, and moonshiners might have been it. But there was a company-based distillery that was making their products. They were just getting off the ground, and they weren't selling very well. They got the state-of-the-art system, all stainless steel, super hermetically sealed. They had filters on their air coming in. They were doing clean room style brewing, right? They didn't want any extra microbes messing with their alcohol production process. They only wanted their yeast, right? Which by the book is the best way to do it, right? You don't want extra microbes competing and making off flavors for what you're trying to produce. You only want your whatever fungus or bug or yeast that you add to be the one producing your flavors.
Right.
By the science, right? And they brought in these guys who were old-timey, gritty out there in the wood style distillers, and they brought them in and said, "Hey, can you help us with our process?" And these guys took one look at the fermenters they had that were all sealed up, right? No way for outside air to get in. And they said, "Oh, get a blowtorch, cut the tops off every single one of these." He's like, "Open those windows over there, let some of the natural air in." Right? And the guys were like, "Oh my God, wait, you can't do that. We're going to get contamination and cross stuff." They're like, "That's part of what makes your flavor. You can't keep it clean room like this. Of course it's going to taste like garbage."
An air terroir almost.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So they cut the tops off of them, and they let it be just slightly less aseptic, not saying they it got dirty, didn't get contaminated, they didn't have infection, but they let some of the natural yeasts that exist in the world around us and in our region and in our air get into their distilling process, and it fixed their flavor profile. So it's this brewing is this nice two-sided coin, right, between the science and doing things right and being super clean, and a reality-based element of imperfection is what we look for, right? The imperfections in the process are what draws the human taste bud and really makes something stands out and makes us go, "Oh my God, that's so good. I love this." You
Create
can't
national styles, and
you can't write it all down and break it into this perfect formula from like a science-based aspect, because all your numbers can be perfect, but if it tastes like garbage, that doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like book smart wise can be perfect, but if people don't like it, you're out of luck. You got to have it be an applicable thing to other people that the human taste bud loves, and that's that art versus science back and forth that is like what draws me to the craft, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's like people aren't enjoying your music. Doesn't matter how intellectually high thinking and and forward thinking the concept is theoretically. If people don't hear the music and like what they're hearing, then it's not good music.
Exactly. I think there's a lot of parallels between music and brewing in that regard. That's the art-based, science-based, like two-sided coin, like I was saying.
Yeah. And also, there's a big debate in the music production kind of area about quantizing music. And quantizing music is essentially like if you have let's just say you have 4/16 notes on a snare drum, like, da 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 da, leading to a downbeat on beat 2, right? 1 E and a 2.
Right.
There's actually going to be slight depending on what style you're playing in. If you're trying to like swing it and play on the backside of the beat, or just depending on maybe you're playing like blast beat metal and you want it to be like metronomically perfect. But even still, like there's going to be slight differences by milliseconds, or even fractions of milliseconds in the timing of when those hit. And if you quantize them, it lines them up mathematically perfectly in a machine. But if you have everything quantized, it actually sounds worse.
Yeah, because the human ear goes, "Well, there's something wrong with this. I don't understand. It doesn't sound like real music." Because
you don't hear a human element of that consciousness that I was talking about transferred through the music.
Yep.
Into so that's like what the artistry is, right? No matter how close we get to being able to write entire symphonies through AI or whatever, like the computers, I highly doubt computers will ever be able to perfectly simulate the spiritual element inside of that, naturally unquantized music that any set of performers would have on that performance, right? Which is why people have favorite performances, favorite live show performances. It's all just a meshing of the materials in the area and creating and synthesizing something out of it. And so that's what's happening in the brewing process, with the historical and national differences, and working with the crops and such you have around you, right? So also why organic products tend to be so much more healthy. So and also ties into your geology and maintaining the soil properly, so that you'll always get a great product every time if you have to farm there. So it all kind of links together. The human experience is looking for an unquantized product, right? So,
no, definitely. Well, here, let me do one of my favorite things. Let me ask you, what kind of beers and stuff do you like? What are your favorite sort of styles? And what do you gravitate
I hate this
towards?
question
You hate
because
it?
everyone always expects me to have
favorite.
an answer.
It doesn't have to be a favorite.
I always say it depends on the mood, everything. Like that really is the answer. I actually, that's a big thing for me. Like I like having the full palette of variety available to me, whether it's spirits or beer or wines. Unless it's a really sickeningly sweet, cheap white wine. That stuff just makes me sick to my stomach. It's not even real wine. But
hangover the next day. Is there anything you're gravitating towards?
So I do have a couple of long time mainstay favorites, and they tend to be double IPAs, triple IPAs, especially stouts that generally have approaching or crossing double-digit alcohol profiles. I like that stuff because it's just a lot. It does, it sounds kind of snooty and but there is like a higher level of depth that is that you're capable of in those beers. That just isn't possible in a lighter beer. And there's a time and a place for a lighter beer, right? Like you're out on the lake for the day, or you're just kind of day drinking with your buddies. If you start the day with Brother Benjamin from Greenbush, it's like 10% alcohol. It's going to be a rough day. You're probably going to be taking a nap at 3 p.m. But so there are different tools for different purposes, I would say. And I like I have favorites in each category that I've I like being a connoisseur of each style for its own place. I guess that's the composer mindset in me, right? Trying to appreciate each style of music for where it's coming from and what it's trying to communicate. The regional differences and appreciating them, kind of manifestations of of God's plan, if you will, right?
Yeah.
But basically, I like those heavier styles of triple IPAs. When I tried 180, it's 18%. When I tried 120-minute IPA for the first time, it completely opened my mind to a whole different style of IPA that I never even knew existed previously.
Yeah, that's from
you sip on
that's
that like it's
Dogfish Head, right?
Yeah, you sip on that like it's a liquor, because otherwise it's way too strong.
You almost chew on those guys.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, because there are spirits that have less liquor content, alcohol content than 120 minute. Like most liqueurs have less alcohol than 120 minute IPA does, 15 versus 18. But so you chew on those guys, and they taste really, really good. You drink one of those over the course of an hour, you are drunk.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I know when I was
sober to drunk. Yeah,
when I was in California, there was a big a barrel crack release that they had for a barley wine that they had made, And
Yeah.
I'd never had a barley wine before, and it was a similar thing. It was so deep, so rich. I think it was somewhere between like 18 and 22% alcohol. And they had aged it for like a couple years, like 2 or 3
God.
years, and they finally
Yeah.
cracked it. And oh man, I grabbed like 3, 4 bottles of that stuff and stuck them in the
Yeah.
back of the fridge. Drank them slowly before I left California, but that was a great one. So I always love trying to like branch out and find new styles.
Yeah, barley wines and meads are just something I haven't explored as much because it's hard to find good ones in Michigan, honestly.
That's true. There's a place called Bee
Yeah.
Nectar out here in Detroit that I've been going to for they do
Those-
a Magic the Gathering night
Yeah.
on Wednesdays for a group that I have getting together. But they have pretty good meads. Those guys actually offered me a job too. I applied there in one of my post-COVID or like start of COVID. I'm searching for a job and we sent out a bunch of applications, and they got back to me when I was like 3 months after I'd moved out to California. They're like, "Hey man, you're still looking for a job?" I was like, "Unfortunately, I'm on the other side of the country now.
Yeah.
I can't do it anymore." But
I can't do a 35-hour commute, sorry.
yeah, it's gonna be a big one. I'm gonna take like 3. I'm gonna get like a couple days a week. You guys do me part time.
And I'm out in Cali now. Joke's on you, suckers.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, it's a cool
yeah,
place. I like it, but it was like this one was
How-
too late. I can't do it.
How did you like Cali?
I loved it out there, man. It was a
Yeah.
great place. I got to do a lot of exploring in just like the nature preserves and stuff that are out there.
Yeah.
You know, just buy a parking pass for the day for like $10-15 for some spot, because everywhere in Cali charges you for parking no matter where you go. There's just too
Yep.
many people around. So I'd
Yeah.
drive out in the wilderness, park on some preserve, throw a half dozen Gatorades and a bunch of trail snacks in my backpack, and just go hike for 3-4 hours. Try not to keep my wits about me, because that was the biggest like, oh wait, I'm not in Michigan anymore moment. Was I was in this nature preserve, and I'd gone down to like a riverbed, right, and it was hotter, so the river was lower than it normally was. Bunch of nice smooth rocks from the riverbed all along the banks, right, and I'm out there in shorts and sneakers, just like hopping from rock to rock trying to get out to the water. And I got about halfway out, and I looked around myself, and I was like, wait a minute, this is like prime snake country. This is like exactly the spot where like snakes would hide between the rocks. This isn't Michigan. There's not like no venomous snakes out here. Like there's stuff that'll bite me and kill me. And I'm an hour and a half walk from where my car is. Like no one's gonna come get me. Maybe I should leave here and like go back where I came from, get back on the trail.
Or at least hop in and educated,
Right, exactly. To have a little bit more idea what I'm doing. But so I was thankful that I didn't run into any sort of trouble, because there's mountain lions, there's bobcats, like there's big old bears, there's snakes, like there's a bunch of stuff that'll kill you out in California if you're in the woods.
Yeah, my dad would go hiking in like South Central Connecticut, where we were at. He used to love going hiking before he had his hip injury, but he's working to recover from that.
Right.
But huge passion of his. Like I have all his old hiking equipment, really nice stuff. He would like learn the area, his specific area. He was obsessed with stuff like that, like learning all the wildlife and specific, you could say, like ecosystem terroir of his area. All the all the interactions between the wildlife and how to like deal with bears. He encountered a couple of bears from time to time on the trails and just knew how to handle them. And so
That's a smart way to do it.
He loves that he's got that traveler kind of wanderer type of personality out in he grew up in Montana. So so I mean, if he had it his way, we would be able to have a really comfortable living out in Montana and just be there. But
and be in the mountains.
But last time I checked, Pfizer wasn't hiring in Montana. So so
Good
you
old
kind of had
Pfizer.
to make it work somewhere else. But
yeah, driving out there to Cali, because I drove the whole way out from Michigan. I just packed a bunch of stuff in my car, put my apartment in one of those U-Haul orange pods, and shipped it on freight across the country. I spent like 3 days driving, like 12 to 14 hours a day, because I was chasing the time zones as I went across, gaining an hour every day that I drove. And it was a surreal experience, honestly, just because being completely on your own, halfway across the country, middle of some desert somewhere, and it's just like mountains and towns that have a big hill in the background with a rock outlined for the initial for the name of the town up on the hill. and the next town's got their hill with their label. I think one was called like Battle Mountain was the name of the town, and they had
Sounds
a big
exciting.
a BM in rocks up on a hill on the side of their on the side of their town. And I was just like, this is such a cool, like, I was like, imagine growing up in a place like this where you're in the middle of nowhere. There's
Yeah.
like 1,000 people maybe in your town, and like this is just, you know, everybody because this is your small town environment. You know, driving across the little rickety bridges where you can jump off into the water, and I'm like, I know the kids are out here running it, you know, 11 o'clock at night when they're out gallivanting. Like, you know, there's kids daring each other to jump off this bridge.
Yeah.
And, like, you just know it's happening, and it
Yeah.
just felt so cool. There was like
Yeah.
an energy that came off the land out there and off the rocks and everything. I couldn't really put my finger on it, but it was like a pseudo spiritual thing going out there. I
Well,
really
yeah.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, I mean, everyone talks about that, you know, going out in nature on your own and kind of reconnecting with Gaia, so to speak, you know.
Yeah. And then when I was out there, I got really into rock climbing, like rock climbing gyms. I did a lot of bouldering. So I was in probably the best shape I've ever been in. I'm still chasing the tails of, of that
Yeah,
level of stuff
you'll
because
get
I was
back
climbing probably 4 or 5 days a week easily.
Yeah.
But a few back injuries kept me off the grind, and I'm sort of making my way back from all that. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was a great place. The winter was like a month. It got rainy and 40 degrees from like January to February, or from like halfway
That's
through
it.
December to halfway through
my
February, or halfway through January. And like February 5th, I like walked out in jeans and a sweatshirt to go to work, and it was like 75 degrees outside. I felt like the hibernation brain that you get in Michigan when the winter hits, where you just kind of like lower your brow and expect it to be gray, and you're going to be depressed for 5
For
months.
like 5-6 months.
It went
yeah,
whoop,
literally.
and I was like,
Yeah.
wait, that's it? That's all the winter we get? I'm back to sunshine. I get vitamin D and dopamine again. I'm like, this place is great. I don't ever want to leave.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's why I wanted to move. A big reason why I wanted to move to Austin you know, when I almost got that job at Multitracks before going to Sweetwater, was because there's sunshine there 300 days a year.
oh my God.
Yeah.
People don't
And the
realize how
winters
much that does for you, right? How much
Yeah.
your mental state is improved by actual access to consistent sunlight.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big deal, and like there are a lot of people in Indiana over here. The average person here has lived in Fort Wayne their whole life.
Right.
And they just like, some of them haven't even traveled more than like 1 or 2 contiguous states outside of Indiana their whole lives. And they just have
Yep,
no
right.
context for how much better it can be. They're like, I'm comfortable here,
Yeah.
you know? And it's like, I just want to take them, I just want to take all of them to, you know, even like Montana or something, or, you
Right.
know, down to Texas or something. Just show like Cali or something. Like, it could be so
That's
much
like-
better than this. And like, it's,
That's one of my hot
Yeah.
political takes, right? We're gonna go on a small tangent of my own personal opinions. I think regions and states should have funds, right, from the public to facilitate one move for a person in their lifetime, right? If you want to get out of where you are, if you're unhappy here, instead of spending 10 years saving up every dime you can to get out, right? And like chafing against your neighbors because you don't like the place that you live and you don't agree with what's there. Just
Yeah.
like let somebody bounce, man. One time in their life, let them move to somewhere different, because just the one move, transplanting yourself to a brand new environment, a brand new region, a whole different set of people, is going to give you a huge amount of perspective for your life.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
going to do way more for you than getting stuck in the spot you're in and having to fight your way out. 'Cause
Yeah.
it just breeds animosity, right? You just hate your neighbors because you don't like where you are.
Yeah, yeah, and I definitely have kind of felt that way from time to time in Indiana. I'm not gonna lie.
I think it'd be a cool service, man. Just let people
yeah.
get out. Let them do something.
Yeah, and like it's the amount of perspective that generates is just so critical,
yeah.
because
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even like New England, you know, has a very different type of person than the Midwest does. The South has a very different type of parts of the South have very, very different types of people in them. A
Yeah.
Georgia South is very different than a Kentucky South. Is very different than a Florida South. Louisiana South is a whole other breed of like just
That's basically its own country.
yeah, it's basically its own fucking country out there. There's Louisiana, which is a different country, and there's another different Vatican City inside of Louisiana called New Orleans. That's a whole
old
other like. There's a whole different kind of like dark energy spinning there, but
It's its own
but
thing. I love it
yeah.
though.
Yeah, it
mean-
was a really cool vibe. It's just that I only got to spend like an evening there on a road trip
okay.
back from Austin in an Airbnb. I like got to like within like a mile or two of Bourbon Street was where
Nice.
my place was, but I didn't go on Bourbon Street because I got there at like 9:20 at night. And I was like
right.
unloading my car by myself at 9:20 at night in like down in like
man.
the downtown housing of New Orleans, and I was like, this it's like going out, 2 hours into the woods with no understanding of the wildlife out there in California.
Right? No direct knowledge.
You're just completely a fish out of water, and it's really unnerving.
I mean, shoot. That reminded me of like my second day driving, right, out to Cali.
Yeah.
It was like the clock finally said like 9 o'clock at night or so, 8:30, and I was like, man, the sun's still up. I'm still driving, but I've been going since 8, 9 in the morning. I'm putting like 12, 13 hours with the time change because I drove over one of the time zones on the way out and gained an hour back. And I was like, hey, maybe I should start like looking for a hotel, a place to stay for the evening. So I start clicking on my GPS, and I'm in the middle of the desert. It's like I'm still like an hour and a half outside of Salt Lake City. And that's like the closest civilization I'm going to get to. And like, I better not break down. So I think I got to Salt Lake City. Must have been like 10:30-ish, 10:15. And I just jumped at some hotel by the airport there downtown.
Yeah.
Where my GPS snaked me into. And I checked in. I was like, hey, do you guys still have like a bar open? I've been driving all day. They're like, oh, yeah, they're still open till like 11. So I like sprinted upstairs, right? Because it's Utah. It's a Mormon country. You can't be drinking.
Yeah.
There's hard cutoffs here for that kind of stuff. So like sprinted up my hotel room, showered off real quick from being sweating in the car all day, ran back down and got myself a beer from like a local brewery there. I think it was like I think I got it was actually like a Belgian style beer that they did. And I was like, cool, I'll just take it off tap, see what they got.
Yeah.
But it was funny, just that different culture for the region and not realizing like, oh wait, I'm in the actual middle of nowhere. Like there isn't civilization out here. This is the West. This isn't the East Coast anymore.
Yeah, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah, no, seriously. And I was like, oh wow.
It's also enriching, just like learning languages, I was talking with Elliot in some previous podcasts, like just experiencing all these different cultures and different frames of reference. And it sounds corny, but it does just allow you to appreciate a lot more different types of people in different ways of life and different interests and knowledge, right? There's a reason why people get so addicted to traveling. Part of it's people seeking a whole bunch of transitory experiences that they're never going to get their money back on. But like part of it is just becoming a deeper and more enriched person. Like it really is.
There's something to be said, right? The main thing I'm trying to get out here living my life is the experiences, right? I want to do cool stuff with my friends. I want to do cool stuff with special people. I want to see stuff. I want to go to shows. I want to see places. Like, because, I mean, you can spend your whole life grinding a paycheck and you'll get a payout for it, right? You'll get later in life, you'll be able to live easier, have nicer places to stay, be able to do more things. But, like, the body wears down. Like, when you're young, I strongly believe people should get out there and just see the world, do cool stuff.
Yeah.
Grind when you need to, but really just lean into those vacations. Don't give your life away to some company just because, I think I got to work hard here. Nah, man, take your vacation, run that stuff up. Tell them you're not coming in for a few weeks. Company was there before you got there. It's going to be there after you leave. Like,
yeah, exactly.
But,
and like, if you're not working commission, like you have PTO, you're getting paid to be out of work, which sounds like a pretty cool concept to me.
It's pretty cool.
Must
man.
be
It's
nice.
cool.
Can't relate, but
Hey, that's why I'm tacking on a week at the end of July to go kayaking with some of my old buddies from when I worked at the casino dealing poker. I'm just like, hey, we're going to go spend 5 days kayaking on the river and camping out and making meals with each other and hanging out. And these are people I see once a year, only for this thing. We don't hang out. I don't talk to them that much. But every year we all get back together and have a blast. And it's just like, it's a special thing, right? And all because one day one of my coworkers was like, hey, Matt, do you want to go camping sometime? I heard you like that. I'm like, yeah, what are you guys doing? Like, we're going camping or kayaking at the end of July. You want to come? I was like, yeah, I want to come. Let me come. Showing up as a random fifth wheel to a couple couples and just like, they didn't know me from Adam. I didn't know them from anybody. Like, none of us, we talked a little bit as coworkers, but like, I'm some stranger.
Well, that's another part of experiencing other cultures and art forms and national styles and like all the stuff we're talking about is you get to a place where it doesn't matter who you're with. You just you find one piece of common ground, which is easy to do, with more of that kind of experience, and you can create, strong friendships with anybody.
Yeah.
With like literally anybody. So, and quickly. There have been multiple, times where I had like a work junction for one of my mom's old jobs, and people are asking like, "Oh, does he know these people here?" And she's like, "No, he doesn't know any of these people." Oh, it seems
Yeah,
like
I met
it.
him today.
Yeah, I met him today, and we're just connecting over things, and so like that. There's just so much. Everybody has a different set of experiences to bring to the table, and so it's as Carlin said, right? Everybody is everybody are beautiful, unique, supremely interesting individuals as individuals, but it's when they get into groups and they start wearing little hats and start getting little speeches and start getting little mantras and slogans, when they start to become irritable and irksome. So yeah, definitely pretty cool. Pretty interesting tangent. I didn't expect to go on, but
that's fun, man. The travel side is great because I really feel like going out to California just opened my horizons. It let me know that I'm going to succeed no matter where I end up. Put me in a completely new city where I have no support system, no people I know, and I'm gonna. Because I got my roommates that I got out there. I found them on Facebook because one of the classmates was like, "Oh, I got to live at home. I can't keep paying if I'm gonna do remote learning." And so I walked into a 3-bedroom, 3-bath apartment with 2 guys I'd never met before, hadn't ever even talked to. And like, they're great people. I still talk to them to this day. And they both got physical therapy PhDs. And they actually inspired me to go back to school because I saw how the way they were grinding out classes and doing tests and working on stuff and like getting ahead in life. And I was like, dude, I want that. This is something I actually like am a little envious of in a good way. Like, this is inspiring. I want to go get that I gotta have that for myself.
That's another piece about meeting a bunch of people, is you're going to encounter knowledge that inspires you to grow into a stronger and better person that you wouldn't have encountered if you hadn't broadened your horizons, right?
Exactly.
So that learning process, borrowing from the knowledge of everybody rather than just depending on what you and your circle of like 10 or 12 people have, and getting too comfortable, but yeah, definitely a big deal. I think it's just really empowering to know once you've done that 1 or 2 or 3 times, started in a brand new region with a brand new path, which is what grad school was for me, right? Like, I didn't know anybody in Bowling Green except technically my private lesson teacher. Made a whole new, community of new friendships and connections there, and it was, kind of a central piece of the whole community there for like 2 years, and there are people there that I still, are really close friends with to this day. For instance, there's like a pianist and her husband who I met there, and she was accompanying me for, she was my assigned accompanist for the second, year of grad school for me. And, they met and got married when they were an undergrad, and she is an absolutely incredible pianist.
Excellent.
We play the Geologist concerto together, which is anybody who's a musician listening. Geologist is kind of synonymous with playing Through the Fire and Flames on Guitar Hero, basically. So,
all right, I dig it.
So that was a bit of a bear, but it was a lot of fun. But her and her husband and I have hung out, many times since, and just kind of caught up, and they're just very interesting people, and they come from the New England area, so different culture. She's like homeschooled, and comes from a private undergrad education. So, pretty much all the things that I wasn't growing up. Public school, went to a public university, right? Public state university.
Just the other side of the coin, the whole different way of living.
Yeah, and there's so many different ways to live, So it's just knowing that helps broaden your horizons, and then helps you construct what you want your life to look like on the back end. And there are a whole bunch of really strong, growth-oriented, optimistic ways to construct your life and get tons of great resources for very cheap if you know where to look and what you're doing, and that's all part of the growth process that I'm just so addicted to and never want to stop. Just personally, economically, spiritually, professionally, with my health, I'm obsessed with that too, and just knowledge, cultures, art. all that stuff. Like that to me, that growth is like why I'm here. So, and
Oh, yeah.
you know, all these different perspectives help to shape that. And once you are in a position where you have traveled, not necessarily traveled, like once you've kind of replanted yourself, even just once, let alone 2 or 3 times, like, you know, I could do this anywhere.
Yeah.
So like,
I'll
there's
make it
just
work. I'll
there's
find
just
people.
there's just a nice centeredness and stability that comes from that.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a level of confidence and just like reassuredness that it's going to be okay. You don't have to worry. You're going to get into a new area. You're going to meet new people. All you got to do is put yourself out there.
Not only am I going to make this work, I'm going to thrive.
Yeah.
And gain a whole new network of people in a new area that is interwoven in a whole bunch of other places that I can take advantage of. So you're just constantly gaining opportunities.
Because even when I came back to Kalamazoo, right, like we'd all grown up there, but by the time I made it back to go back to Western, I think I was, I graduated when I was 31, 2 years. I was like 29, 30-ish when I made it back to Michigan,
Yeah.
right? We're talking about, you know, a lifetime since we were there in high school, you know, almost 12 years kind of a thing. So I didn't know anybody in the city. Nobody was still around from when we were there. I know a few family members and stuff, like my little brother, but I just went out and was like, okay, well, I can either sit in my room all day and keep playing video games with my boys like I've always been doing, which is fine. I've got a great social outlet through that thing. I was like, but I'm going to go join a soccer team. Let me go just join up for the club indoor soccer team or the local indoor soccer team as a general sign up for whatever the conglomerate team is. And I'll go play goalie for those guys. And
Just join the local soccer team. You'll meet your wife there.
Well, maybe. What's more likely to happen is that the good players that I would go up against that would rile or fire off shots left, right, and center at me, and I'd save 85% of them and still lose like 10-2, right? Because these guys are shooting on me 60, 70 times, just constantly for an hour and a half. And then I'm like holding up tempo with them. All of a sudden, they're pulling me aside after the game and going, dude, what are you doing next session? You want to keep playing with this team? You want to come play for us? What are you doing in the summer? Right? You want to come out and play on some outdoor teams? Like, we got a few leagues. I was in a Pfizer league. I was in a semi-competitive, like, adult men's league. I was doing 2 or 3 indoor teams. I had to be like, guys, I can't keep playing. I'm playing like 5-6 days of soccer a week. Like, I'm dying here. One, I'm fat and out of shape. I can't keep up with this. 2, I got to get my classes done because I got to graduate still. I was like, I start saying no to a few of these games, man. I'm all beat up. But it's a great thing. You just put yourself out there in some social environments, do some activities. Don't worry about looking silly or being good at them. Just get out there and be active. Everybody's out there just having a good time. And there's a place for everybody. I don't know. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. And if you don't know where your place is, just start wandering around and looking wherever you feel.
It'll show itself.
Look, you know? Yeah, and you just kind of, it's like the North Star thing from, Mr. Peterson, obviously. It's like you go this way. You don't go this way to the North Star. You go like this way, then this way, then this way, and it looks more like this. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to make it line up here. It goes more like this rather than, like this.
Yeah, right? It's not a straight line. You got to wander. Yeah. Right, and I think you
wander less and less with each iteration.
Right. But at the same time, some of the best gems and the true treasures that you'll find in your life happen on those wanderings. You don't always know where the destination's going to be. Yeah. That's like I was listening to a few guys for podcasts about mindfulness and spirituality and detachment from sort of the ego of the self. Right. That. You are a thing, but are you this that's right here, right now? Do you really have to worry about, what your title is and what people think of you, right? And a big thing that they push is like you can get stressed out about like, oh my gosh, should I take this new job or should I move to this place, right? Is it the right decision for me? And the reality is you'll never know. Right? Until you're on the other side of that coin, you'll never know if the choice that you made was the right one or the one you're supposed to make or the best choice for you. Stressing over what's going to be the best thing for me. Maybe getting fired is the best thing for you because you're going to wander down to the bar one day and meet some dude that's going to change your life and go into business with you, right? You just never know what's going to happen. What might seem on its face the worst possible outcome for you could actually be the best thing that's ever happened to you. So why be scared and stressed and like have all that tension in yourself about what the best choice is when you can just like go with what feels right and just see what happens and know you're going to be okay on the other side.
Yeah, definitely. And also, um, working to find out working to make smart decisions, but also when it
Right.
comes decision time, you know, it's just like in the entrepreneur space, right? People actually kind of laugh at the academic approach in the entrepreneur space because it encourages you not to make any mistakes, right?
Right.
You make more mistakes, you get a worse grade, you don't go to better schools, right? Whereas in the entrepreneur space, I think there's a stat like the average millionaire has been broke 3 times, gone
Oh yeah.
bankrupt 3 times or something like that.
Yep.
So yeah,
Because
they're
you
like
mess it up and you learn from it.
they expect massive iteration of failure. So, but yeah, I mean, you can work to minimize risk, but at the end of the
Yeah.
day, you just need to get out and try stuff, right?
Yeah, there's
and get better
absolutely
at
this.
honing your conscience and your intuition over time.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Make the box that you feed information into process it better and better, right? Soak up as much as you can, but at the end of the day, know that you're just throwing it to the wind at the end of the day. You get no idea what's going to happen. You made the best educated guess you ever want. I can get my whole brewing degree and land my great job and move to a city where I've got people, right? And there's a college town where there's going to be people my age there, and COVID's going to hit in 2 days, right?
Yep.
Like you never know what's going to happen. The whole
Yeah.
world's going to end as you're like, because I was in that
Yeah.
part of my life, I was like, I've been a recluse. I've been living in my house. All I do is play video games. Like, I want to go out. I want to do stuff. I want to go to bars. I want to meet people. Then they had a shelter in place for 2 years the day after I got there. And I'm like, wow, the way I live is called sheltering in place.
Yeah. I was already doing this beforehand.
Yeah, this is light work, baby.
Lightweight.
Yeah, lightweight. Hey, that's the mantra, right? If you can pick it up, it's lightweight.
So yeah, for me it was like I saved up all this money after grad school. Had this master plan to move to New York City and start waiting tables somewhere and make 50K waiting tables because you can do that in New York City.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And have enough money to pay the bills, put a tiny bit away, and just be able to go and not work too many hours and network as much as I can in the music scene and make that like my primary kind of focus, right? And take as many gigs as I could, try to get a nice, higher end place and work a whole bunch of nice lunch shifts with some regulars, kind of thing. Was the idea after working at the old Lime Inn. And I saved up, and my dad's like, you really should have $10,000 put away in your bank account before doing that because you'll have a
Little
bunch of
emergency
moving
fund.
costs. You'll need to find a place to work, and you have to be paying rent in the meantime. And that way, you won't go broke and have to come back here.
Right.
So, and so I saved up $10,000, and I was looking for places to move. And I was planning a trip out to New York City to go to those places to move. And suddenly I hear that there's this bug called COVID going around.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't know, things look pretty serious. I'm like, it's just a bug. Like, what's going to happen? And then like 3 or 4 days later, like we're suddenly not at work at Old Lime Inn.
We're shutting everything down. It's like that old
2 weeks
Madagascar.
to flatten the curve, right?
Yep.
Try 2 years
Yep, 2 years.
to create a wealth transfer. But anyways,
man.
so that completely crushed any ambitions I had to go to New York City.
Yeah.
In a very brutal fashion, but it took me on a whole different path that is way more stable and way more enriching looking back. So you just never know what's going to happen, right? You just
Exactly.
got to adapt.
No, my plan was to be around this time in my life. I was planning to have 3 to 5 years of brewing experience in a practical brewery, be head brewing, making recipes, putting stuff into competitions, and be ready to move to Germany. Actually, I was going to move to Germany and try
That
to
would've
do
been a cool place.
capstone master brewer course out there that I was
It's
going to
kind of
try to get
like
into.
working for Stitzel Weller, basically.
Yeah, literally.
You
That's
know?
what I was going to go do. I was going to get German certified
Yeah.
officially in the global market for beer making was my plan. Because I'd love to make a brewery one day, right? Last time I talked a lot about what I'm doing now and my environmental consulting and the geology route I got. But to me, that's a conduit towards getting to a point in my life where I can start my own brewery. I'd love to be my own business owner, have my own stuff on tap, make my own recipes. Because a big thing I've always wanted is to be the kind of boss that raises up their workers, right? I want to be the kind of employer that like I get proud to know that like my workers are sending their kids to college, or they're buying a better house for themselves, or they can buy a new car and keep themselves in a good place in life. So
Right.
I think the best way to sort of enact your own ideas and morals and I'm trying to think of the right word, and like your perspective on the way the world should be conducted is through being able to be a good business owner, or put those practices into, or put those ideas into actual practice in an everyday business environment, watch it blossom if it does, and then be able to give back to the community around you with that money, sponsor baseball teams, send the local, like we happened in Mattawan, the local softball team to world championships, that kind of thing. Really be like a community staple. That's like what I would love to be one day. They don't have to be huge. I don't got to be a millionaire. I'm not trying to put a whole bunch of money in my pocket. Like, I just want to make something cool.
You want to make something cool and live comfortably.
Exactly. And let other people live comfortably because of what I built, right? I want everyone at the brewery to be doing well. I want to see people say, hey, man, I got enough money working here. I'm going to go to college. Like, it's been great working here. Like, I want to be able to be like, let's go, man. See you later. Come back when you graduate and say, hey, right? Like, that's what I want to make. Yeah. I want people to know that coming working at my brewery is a way to make their life better. And I think it'd be a cool thing.
That'd be awesome. Be a community figure and create jobs for people.
That's my hope, because I feel like you can make more impact.
People who think like that.
Yeah, you make more impact on 100 people that live in your community, in a more meaningful way than you can. I don't know. I think like getting out there as a keyboard warrior on Twitter or something, yelling to the void about how this is how the world should be, and this is how people should think and act. Like, just put it into practice, right? Shout it from a place of helping others around you. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe that's a little wishful thinking, but hey.
Well, no, it's it's suddenly for a Peterson hater, you sound a lot like Peterson right now.
Hey man, I don't hate. I've soaked a lot of information from a lot of sources, man.
Yeah, it all kind of points to the same thing, right? Which is what we're talking about. Grow yourself, build yourself. Shape yourself into the most kind of growed up being you can, and then share your trials and tribulations with the community, and share the gold with the community, basically, right? Give back. And then that's the whole thing that keeps the whole cycle perpetuating itself, and
down
from the Big Lebowski.
yeah, I knew what you're going. Another little Lebowski.
Lebowski rolling down the trail.
You got me rambling again.
So yeah, I guess as far as the for an episode about brewing, we didn't talk a whole much about brewing.
We did about a good half hour at the front end, and then it sort of spiraled into travel and what it means to be a person, and I like
what it means to create a good life for yourself. But I don't know if there's anything you have found particularly interesting about the nuts and bolts of brewing that you'd want to tack on here at the end.
Nuts and bolts of brewing, man. I have. Maybe I should
talk about that another time.
Maybe I shouldn't give away my company secrets, right?
I see.
But yes. I think this is a little bit of a pipe dream for, I don't know if anyone could replicate this, because it's kind of an outlandish idea, right?
Okay.
But in being a geologist and trying to do brewing, right? And all I've talked about how, the ground affects the water affects the beer, right?
Yeah.
I have a pipe dream that I want to go to somewhere like Kentucky, where the limestone there is essential for the styles that they make. And I want to cut a big honking silo core, right? Like a huge chunk of rock. And I want to cut it out of the ground, and I want to put it on a truck. And I want to take it to another state. Okay. And I want to put it in a silo on the corner of my brewery. And I want to run water through it. And I want to take the water I won through it and make Kentucky style bourbon in Idaho.
That'd be crazy.
Right? Yeah. I feel like it's enough of a spectacle that people would come from all over to be like, this dude's got a silo full of rock. They're making Kentucky bourbon in Montana. That doesn't make any sense.
you could trust the process because you could see the silo right out back.
Yeah. And I want to make it like a see-through wall right on the edge of the brewery built into it, so you can sit and look and see water running through the rock face. I feel like that would be one of the coolest gimmicks of all time. But it's trademarked. Maybe. Don't steal from me, people out there. Yeah. And if you make it, at least do it right and tag me so I can know that it works, and I'll run it back a second time.
Indeed. But, think that's a pretty good place to land the plane here, so
Heck
to
yeah,
speak.
man.
But always a pleasure. I'm sure we'll be talking again real soon.
Yeah, man, I
And,
love coming on here. It's always a great time. I think we got a good energy going, and it's always
good
fun to chat
dynamic
with you.
going.
We've been doing this for forever, man.
Yeah.
Sitting on back porches talking about the world. It's cool to get this out in front of people.
Yeah.
We
Now
always
we're
sort of
just,
dreamed of it.
Now we're just doing it on a screen here, right? A telescreen for all of our fun visitors here. But thanks for joining us, guys. And if you want to get more of the podcast, I'm at closer to the Hart HART podcast. You probably already found me, but any sort of engagement you want to do, like, comment, subscribe, feedback for how you thought things went, or things you want to ask us, we'll be here to respond. So thanks for joining, and see you on the next one.